Somewhere on Earth, right now, there are buildings the size of city blocks where the temperature never rises above freezing. Inside them, rows of machines, stretching further than you can see, consuming more electricity than some entire nations. They are not sleeping. They are not waiting. They are thinking. And what they are thinking about could be the last great turning point in the story of our species. In this episode, we are going to tell you the honest story of what is actually happening in artificial intelligence. Not the version designed to frighten you, not the version designed to sell you something. The real story. Because here is what most people do not realize. The timeline has changed. Researchers who spent their careers saying this was decades away are quietly revising their estimates. So the question is no longer if. The question is, what happens when? To understand where we are going, you first need to understand where we came from. For most of computing history, machines did exactly what they were told. Nothing more, nothing less. A calculator did not decide to calculate. A database did not decide what to remember. They were tools, brilliant tools, but tools. Then in 1997, something shifted. In a hotel ballroom in New York City, the world chess champion, Garry Kasparov, considered by many the greatest chess mind in history, sat across from a computer. Its name was Deep Blue. IBM had built it for one purpose. Kasparov lost. The moment was called a watershed, a word that means everything that comes after flows differently. And it did. But here's what people missed at the time. Deep Blue did not understand chess. It brute forced it. It calculated 200 million possible moves per second and picked the best one. It was incredible, but it was not intelligence. Not yet. 14 years later, IBM did it again. A system called Watson defeated two of the greatest Jeopardy champions ever to play the game. It could parse language, understand context, retrieve meaning from text. Still not truly intelligent, but getting closer. The gap was closing, slowly at first, then faster, and then the world met AlphaGo. If you have never played the game of Go, here is what you need to know. Chess has roughly 10 to the power of 47 possible game states. Go has 10 to the power of 170. That is not a bigger number. That is a different category of number. A number so large, it exceeds the estimated atoms in the observable universe. For decades, the world's best AI researchers said a machine would never master Go. Not in our lifetimes. The search space was simply too vast. In March 2016, Lee Sedol, one of the greatest Go players alive, sat down against AlphaGo, a system built by a company called DeepMind. He was quietly confident. He lost the first game, then the second, then the third. What shook the world was not the losses, it was move 37. In Game 2, AlphaGo placed a stone in a position no human expert would have ever chosen. The commentators initially called it a mistake. Then they watched what happened next, and the room went silent. Because AlphaGo had not made a mistake. It had made a move that human players had never considered in thousands of years of playing the game. It had discovered something new, not retrieved it from training data, not copied a human strategy, created it. Lee Sedol later said that move made him feel, and this is his own word, lonely. Because for the first time he realized he was not playing against a program. He was playing against something that thought differently than any human ever had. After AlphaGo, the scientific consensus shifted overnight, not because a machine won a game, but because it won in a way no one had imagined. And if a machine could discover strategy that thousands of years of human intuition had missed, what else might it find? 6 years after AlphaGo, the world changed again. This time, everyone felt it. On November 30th, 2022, a company called OpenAI released a product to the public. No press conference, no massive marketing campaign, just a link. Within 5 days, 1 million users. Within 2 months, 100 million. The fastest adopted technology in the history of consumer products. People were not just impressed, they were unnerved, because ChatGPT did not retrieve information. It reasoned. It wrote poetry and legal briefs. It debugged code and explained grief. It argued philosophy and translated between 20 languages. And when you asked it something it did not know, it said so. Something had changed. But what almost no one talked about in those early weeks was the real story happening behind the scenes. Because the release of ChatGPT did not just start a cultural moment, it started a race. Within months, Google mobilized thousands of engineers under an emergency response. Microsoft invested billions. A company called Anthropic, founded by former OpenAI researchers, released its own system, Claude. Elon Musk launched XAI. Meta opened its models to the world. And the governments of China, the UK, the EU, and the United States began emergency policy sessions. In the span of 18 months, artificial intelligence went from a fascinating research topic to the single most contested technological battlefield on Earth. And the real reason, was not what these systems could do today. It was what they might become tomorrow. Every AI system we have talked about so far, Deep Blue, Watson, AlphaGo, ChatGPT, was built for something specific: chess, trivia, Go, conversation. Even the most advanced systems today are what researchers call narrow AI, extraordinary within a domain, limited outside of it. But the systems racing toward completion right now are not narrow. They are designed to do something different, something that has a name: artificial general intelligence. Think about what intelligence actually is. Not knowledge, not memory, not speed. Intelligence is the ability to take an unfamiliar problem and figure it out, to transfer what you know in one context and apply it somewhere completely new. A 5-year-old who has never seen a snow globe can shake one and immediately understand it is a miniature world inside. They have never been taught this. They use what they already know about objects, weight, liquid, and gravity. And they reason. AGI would do that, not within a domain. For any domain. In theory, an AGI could read every piece of scientific research ever published, and then connect threads that no human researcher has yet noticed. Not because it is smarter at any one thing, but because it never gets tired. It never forgets. And it can hold 10,000 variables in focus simultaneously. Now, here is where the story becomes something extraordinary. This is what researchers call the intelligence explosion. And it is important to say clearly, this is a theory, not a certainty. Experts are divided on it, but the theory goes like this. Imagine an AI that reaches human-level intelligence. At that moment, in theory, it can begin to help improve its own design. Because improving AI systems is itself a cognitive task. A human-level AI helping to design the next version could produce a system slightly more intelligent than the previous one. That slightly smarter system helps design the next version, which designs the next, which designs the next. Some researchers believe this could happen fast, not over years, over months, weeks, perhaps faster. Others believe the barriers are far more complex, that intelligence does not compound like interest in a bank account. But the reason billions of dollars are being invested right now, the reason governments are convening emergency sessions, the reason the most brilliant minds in computer science are arguing about this publicly, is that nobody knows for certain where the ceiling is. And that uncertainty is the most consequential question of our time. When people talk about advanced AI, they often divide into two camps: the optimists who see a dawn, and the cautious voices who see a cliff edge. But the most thoughtful people in this field hold both things simultaneously, because both are true. A system capable of true general reasoning could read every published medical paper and identify patterns in diseases that take human researchers decades to find. Right now, AI is already helping detect cancers from imaging scans with accuracy that rivals experienced radiologists. Imagine that ability, multiplied. Not just diagnosis. Drug discovery, protein folding, the personalization of treatments down to the individual genome. Consider education. One-on-one tutoring is the single most effective form of learning ever studied, but only wealthy families can afford it. Advanced AI could make personalized, expert-level education available to every child on Earth, for free. Climate modeling, material science, fusion energy, space navigation. Every field defined by complexity, by too many variables for any single human mind to hold, stands to be transformed. But every one of these possibilities sits alongside a shadow, because a system capable of extraordinary reasoning is also a system capable of extraordinary deception. The challenge researchers call alignment, making sure AI systems pursue goals that are genuinely beneficial to humanity, is still an unsolved problem. Not because researchers are not trying, because it is genuinely, profoundly difficult. There is the question of autonomous weapons, military systems that can identify and act without human instruction. There is the question of misinformation, AI-generated content so convincing that truth and fiction become indistinguishable at scale. There is the question of concentration of power. Who controls these systems and who does not? There is the question of labor, not just whether jobs disappear, but how fast, and whether the systems that replace them create new opportunities at the same pace. These are not science fiction concerns. They are engineering and policy challenges that governments, researchers, and companies are working on right now, with urgency and with uneven progress. The lesson of every transformative technology in history, fire, the printing press, nuclear energy, the internet, is that the same invention that feeds a family can burn a village. The difference is never the technology, it is the choices made around it. And that is why this moment, right now, is perhaps the most important window in the history of these decisions. There is a question that sits at the center of all of this, one that no amount of computing power can answer. Throughout history, humanity has built tools that extended what we could do. The wheel extended our legs, writing extended our memory, the telescope extended our sight, but every one of those tools remained tools. They did not think. They did not wonder. What we are building now is something different, something that may, someday, not just extend our thinking, but exceed it. And here is the question that I believe we should all be sitting with. Not the technical questions, not the policy debates, not the quarterly earnings calls, but this one. What does it mean to be human in a world designed by something that understands the world better than we do? Is that a loss? Or is it the beginning of something we do not yet have words for? Every great leap in human history looked terrifying from the inside. The printing press was called dangerous. Electricity was called unnatural. The internet was called the end of community, and none of those fears were entirely wrong. But none of them were entirely right either. The people who shaped those transitions were not the ones who feared most or hoped most. They were the ones who paid the most attention. The question now is not whether this technology arrives. It is whether we are paying attention closely enough to shape what it becomes. If this episode made you think differently about what is coming, this channel exists for exactly that. Future Decoded explores the ideas and technologies that will define the next century of human life. If that is the world you want to understand better, you know where to find us. And before you go, leave this question in the comments below. If an AI surpasses human intelligence, should it have rights? There is no correct answer, but how humanity answers that question may reveal more about us than it does about the machine.